And start the recording.
This meeting is being recorded and or transcribed.
Good morning, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Land Surveyors Board of Examiners. The agenda was posted on the website, and everyone present has one in front of them. So we'll go ahead and get a call to order, and then we'll move into a roll call.
Great, thank you, Michael. Go ahead and
Jay.
order this meeting. There we go. Thank you. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'll read what's required here. At the top of the agenda, notice of the November 18, 2021 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors, including date, time, and location, has been noticed to the Land Surveyors website since October 27, 2020. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, November 12, 2021.
Thank you, sir. We'll do a quick roll call. Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Dillahay.
Here.
Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin?
Mine? Didn't get that worked out.
Martin, are you on mute? All right, well, Mr. Martin shows is online. He may be having some audio difficulties right now.
All right. With that, we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and proceed.
Correct.
Very good. Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to...
Sorry about that.
There we go. Now we got them. Okay, so we do have all four members, correct? Excellent. Thank you. All right. With that, we'd like to go ahead and make a motion for adoption of the agenda. I would like to ask the board for a little leniency on the agenda, perhaps the ability to move items up or down just for convenience, or if we have guests, to obviously move them to the top of the agenda just in respect of their time. But other than that, I'd like to propose a motion for approval of adoption of the agenda as printed.
Okay. Yeah.
A motion?
Got a second? Voice vote. Voice vote is sufficient.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion passes and agreed to. All right. With that, we've got the review and approval of the August 2021 minutes. I trust that the members of the board have had an opportunity to review them as printed and provided to them in their packets. If there's any questions or comments, additions, changes, now's the time. Otherwise, I'd look for a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, there are a couple of things I think it's just a matter of interpretation as the minutes were being taken. Under old business, on the continued discussion of the drone location services, it states midway through it, the verification of the data is completed by a drone with the same level of accuracy and precision as conventional property landscaping equipment. I would think that needs to be changed to land surveying equipment. And there, feet on down, it says Kermit Hemmer advised we could take a drone out and we could verify positions against a known. The word is flay, and I'm not I'm not sure what that is supposed to be.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I was going to question that as well. I imagine that's just an interpretation, probably from the audio recording of the person transcribing, and perhaps it didn't come across correctly or something. But
possibly.
Yeah, I'm not sure what flay. I tried to imagine what it could be or should have been. I can't come up with what possibly it could have been. So I guess I would request that perhaps we go through those notes again and try and get that corrected.
Okay, we'll make those changes.
Other than those changes there, does any member of the board have suggestions? Otherwise, I'd request a motion for approval.
Move we approve as amended.
Second.
All right, first and the second there. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, with that, the the minutes have been approved, subject to changes based on probably transcription errors, I would imagine.
Yeah, given the sentence, the context of the sentence, and the positioning of the G and the Y button right next to each other, I'm assuming that was meant to be flag, a known flag or marker per se. But we'll go back and listen to it and make sure we get it.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, next on the agenda is the Professional Society Report. As a courtesy, we do like to extend an opportunity to the Tennessee Professional Society for Surveyors, TAPS, the opportunity just to kind of give us an update, a general report of ideas and subject matter that they're working on that always would bring attention to us, perhaps improve the relationship between the two separate independent entities. We always like to extend that opportunity to them. And with that, I hope we have a representative of TAPS online that perhaps could help us out there.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is Jimmy Cleveland. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. Cleveland. We appreciate you attending today. Are you by yourself? Do you have other members with you?
We've got Ashley Rose, Nayland, and Mario Forte attending virtually as well. We recently had our September Board of Directors meeting where we changed over with the incoming board September 24th, I believe. So the new board has been sworn in, and we are just moving forward with planning for our spring conference. That's pretty much it. We're just anxiously awaiting the comments on the minimum standard changes, and that's kind of what I've got in a nutshell. Ashley or Mario, does anybody have anything to add?
This is Ashley, and I don't believe I have anything to add. Thank you, Jimmy.
Very good. Jimmy, real quick, not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but do you have dates yet for the next conference, TAPS conference?
Not off the top of my head. I don't have them at my fingertips, but Mario is online. He may be able to answer that question.
Good morning, Mario Forte here. Yes, the conference is March 2 to 5, March 2 through 5.
Excellent, thank you. And I do recall seeing some PDH requests come through for those seminars that are going to be presented at the meeting. So that's certainly in order. We appreciate you getting those in time. All right, Jimmy, anything else you want to add to that?
No, sir, not at the present time. I just would like to thank the opportunity for us to attend virtually. It's a huge benefit to us that just have a very, very small role in the meeting or the opportunity to speak, and it definitely helps us make better use of our time, and we appreciate this opportunity, and hope we can continue it in the future.
Very good. Well, certainly thank you to yourself, Ashley and Mario for attending, and certainly send our best regards to TAPS and all the board members there for us. Okay, with that, I think we can move on to the education report. Is there anything that staff needs to present to us on that?
All right, education report. Caleb, do you have anything you'd...
So as far as I understand, there were 5 online courses online. 2 were virtual, 2 were correspondence, and 1 was the online course that I gave you the application for. I think you were going to...
Yeah, this course, we did have some particular questions about this course. The applicant, Mr. Nettleman, I believe we did extend an invitation to Mr. Nettleman to be here today. I'm not sure if is he with us? He's not? Okay. The question we had around this was, it appears as though this is a course that had applied for 8 hours. There appears to be 8 components in what is listed as a module component. This is more or less just kind of a housekeeping interpretation. I think our impression was that each one of these components is meant to stand alone. However, we can't verify that since they're all here as one. And without Mr. Nettleman, without his attendance today to help us clear some of these things up, I'm not sure that we have anything that we can really discuss here in detail because, I don't know. The real question is if we find out if this course is meant to be 8 separate pieces, all 1 hour apiece, meaning that any land surveyor who wanted to take any of these courses could take any one of them independently of each other. We might have to revisit this one just to say each one could be approved for 1 hour. But as is, we'll go with the chairman's impression of one course, 1 hour.
Right.
And if you would, sir, just the reason behind that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, the ethics courses that are presented to us, obviously we need these courses presented, obviously, for the requirements of all surveyors in Tennessee to get those ethics along with minimum standards. Generally speaking, in my experience over the years of that the state has required the ethics courses, and most, if not all, adjoining states to Tennessee also have that same requirement for an ethics course. Most of them are a 1 hour course. The requirement in Tennessee is the 1 hour for each renewal period. So this one kind of triggered a flag with me in that the presenter was offering 8 hours of ethics training. That's unusual. It was just kind of a, that's odd. And to be quite honest with you, my first, without having read this through, was how in the world can you come up with 8 hours of ethics training? Quite honestly. But not to question, the presenter here. Apparently, they're attempting to do just that. Ethics is a tough course to present, and to sit through 8 hours of it would be certainly a challenge, I would think, both on the presenter and the attendees, quite honestly. So my question really was, in the description of the way he covered the course content, the instructor has broken it down into 9 parts, actually, one of which is the exam and the practical exercises, and other certain portions of ethics. And so really my question was, is the course as a whole, is it worthy of what we consider 8 PDH hours? And we do that with every, not just ethics, but every course that's applied for. Is it worthy of? And some we have ruled before that although they've applied for 8 hours, we've only allowed for 4, depending on the content. And this was one to me that I thought fell in that area. I didn't think that an ethics course could be worth 8 PDHs, and I based that on the fact that over the years that we've had PDH requirements and the seminars that I've attended, they've always been 1 hour courses because, quite honestly, that was what the content was necessary for the surveyors. That was what the drive was, to get that 1 hour. I'm not saying here that what he's presenting here is not worthy of 8 hours, but I do question how it could be justified as 8 hours. So I guess what I'm asking is for some clarification from the applicant, if he could justify how this quantifies the full 8 hours, is what I'm saying. So that's really what I'm after. So that's kind of what I've red flagged it for, to say, hey, how in the world are you going to make 8 hours out of this when everyone else is doing 1 hour, and that's what we're accustomed to. If he can present to us and justify that it's worth a solid 8 hours, all to him. But I just would like an opportunity to question the applicant, is all I'm saying. So I'd certainly like to get the thoughts from the other members as well. Thoughts on it?
Well, I tend to agree. You could easily, on having tried to teach ethics and professionalism, you could go as long as you wanted to on it, but whether or not I guess I'd want more of a break. I'm with you. I want a little more of a breakdown to see how he's getting 8 hours, and then we'd have to decide whether or not all the 8 hours could count toward it. I was looking at the module components, which I assume it means that this is for each of the sections has a 20-minute video, and then 30 minutes of independent work and then a 10-minute quiz afterwards. That's not uncommon. Some of the safety modules I've gone through provided by clients. And I agree with you. I'd want to know what it really means for this to be 8 hours.
I agree with what you guys are saying.
Very good.
So if we could get just the opportunity, perhaps you have staff could speak with Mr. I assume it's Mr. Nettleman that's presenting it, or the applicant, and just kind of get a justification for it. If that means, whether he contacts me directly so I could question if I can have that opportunity, or if it means the next board meeting, however we got to do that. But I certainly want to give him the opportunity and certainly want to expedite this as best I can, because if we're holding them back, I don't want us to be the reason we're holding them back. So.
Right, and we would extend the opportunity for him. Might have to confer with counsel to see whether or not a conversation like that could take place off the record.
Right. Then I'm asking. Yeah. That's the same question I'm asking. So.
I think he's got a good outline here, though. It's a good outline.
What we'll do is when we reach out to convey passage of this or acceptance of this 1 hour, as per your recommendation currently, we can extend to him the offer to come and be in attendance at the next meeting as well. I don't think we're not able to have the conversation away from the public.
Understand? Yep. Absolutely.
So that was my only question on the education report.
Okay.
I have a question. I believe 2 meetings ago we had stated that we were only going to look at virtual coursework and not really approve any asynchronous coursework, but this one does look like it's asynchronous. So I was wondering what the thought process was on that.
Help me out what you mean by asynchronous, just so I can better answer the question.
So when I do coursework, I split it between synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous is virtual. It's like live conferences. Self-study and it's online. So I'm not really sure. We had some asynchronous coursework from McKissick two meetings ago, and we did not approve it because it was not virtual. So I was just wondering on this one, what the thought process is.
Okay, I didn't consider that when I looked at this application here just now. But the way I look at it in terms of the way the coursework is presented, what I'm looking for is interactive, the ability for the student to interact with the conductor or presenter while taking that course. That's what I'm looking for. So if there is no interaction between the two, as in, let me give you an example. You receive a packet, you study the packet, you fill out like a take-home test, and then you mail it back in with no opportunity to make contact with the presenter. I've got questions, comments, what do you mean by this type things, then that doesn't fill the bill for me. I need to see some way of, and of course there's so many ways these days, but some sort of interactivity between the student and the presenter.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
I'll say that when it comes to these education opportunities, we do receive, I think, a fair amount of online proposals, and I think that it's only going to grow in the future. There could be an opportunity here for us to either clarify what we're looking for when people apply for education, something that would work within the parameters that you just said, so that they can have that opportunity. And because it feels like, online activity makes it a lot easier for the applicant. And, we use those boards that require CE, all boards that do, most of them have the ability or accept online education, whether it be deemed synchronous or asynchronous. So this would be an opportunity for us to potentially lay out some groundwork that we can maybe put on our website, or we can somehow get to these providers, so that we can move forward as a board, as a program, with some ability to allow folks to have online opportunities. And I get to this because we did an outreach event up in Carter County a couple months ago. One of the gentlemen that was there was a land surveyor, and he expressed that online coursework would be a big benefit to him because he's got to drive 2 hours to get to ETSU where that coursework is, and it's 2 days of not working.
Right.
You know, a couple $1,000s is what he says it costs him in missed opportunity to come in and do this coursework. But if there was an online option that he could do at night and continue to work during the day, it would help him significantly. So that's the mindset right now. And I feel like those are the types of folks that we're trying to help.
Absolutely.
So I just want to put that out there and say that moving forward, we're going to try and make sure that what you just asked for, the kind of the verification of student-teacher communication, whether or not there's a channel there.
Right.
We'll try and get that laid out for you.
Okay. Yep. Any way I can help you on that, let me know.
Okay.
Yep. Excellent. Excellent suggestion. Okay. Caleb, anything further on the education report we need to cover? How is the communication between the board members and the approvals? Is that working for you?
Morgan, if you want to chime in, you can, but I don't believe we're getting much communication from the education provider, the education reviewers.
Yours, yeah. And we've had that issue here for the last couple of meetings, and we're trying to resolve it by, presenting it to us, similar to applications, and it seems to be working fine for me. But obviously, Morgan might be able to chime in on that.
Hey everyone, it's Morgan. So with the education reviewers, unfortunately, most of those courses weren't ever approved or denied. So what I'm just doing is once it's been about 2 weeks, I send it to one of the board members to review. And that I feel like is working a little bit better. That way we don't have a bunch of courses just sitting there. So I think this is a good process that we have.
Okay. As long as it's getting through and we're not holding up the applicants, that's really my major concern. And we want to make a decision and let them get on their way. So if that's what we need to keep doing, let's keep doing it then.
I think the courses that have been do we not need to make an official?
I think we do, yeah. I think the official motion and final approval, because that would be the formal approval of those courses.
That's correct.
All right. Well, absolutely. If there's no further discussion on those, Caleb, anything else you need? Okay. Anything else? Other questions from the board members? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that motion that we approve.
Okay. Mr. Dillhay, there you go.
I'll make that motion that we approve the courses that are in our packet.
All right. Motion for approval on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
I second the motion.
All right. Motion and a second twice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Excellent. Thank you. All right. I think that's the completion of the education report there. I think we can move on to the legal report.
This is a record legal report here, I think.
All that.
1 second and I'll get to it. Okay, yeah, this is a pretty short one. Do you want me to just summarize?
Please do.
Okay. So number one is 2021057421. And the complainant alleges that the respondent basically gave them an incorrect survey and plat and is not happy with the deed description, alleges that it's incorrect, goes so far as to claim the respondent faked the survey. And then I think that the final allegation is that the respondent's father assisted, and the complainant claims that the respondent was never even there on the property and let their father do all the work. The respondent states that the father did help with the work at the property, did some field work, but denies that they were not on the property themselves. Respondent's father has since passed away, so we can't confirm that, but we did have an expert review the whole file, review the survey and everything the complainant gave us, and the expert did not find any evidence of incompetence, misconduct, or any kind of violation, so council recommends dismissal.
Excellent. Thank you. Real quick question. It really doesn't go specific to the case, but I just wanted to clarify. Is this the same case where the surveyor passed away, or is that the separate case?
No, that's a separate case.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't want to get that mixed up. Okay. And we did have an expert reviewer, is that correct?
Correct.
And found no evidence of incompetence, misconduct, or violations.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. I really didn't find anything here under the purview of the board here to really go after. And especially having the expert reviewer come back with that ruling, I would tend to agree with staff's recommendation there. Comments?
I make that motion that we accept the council's recommendation to dismiss.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. All right, if we can move on to the next case, please.
Number 2 is 2021060801. And this is the one I think you were referring to, that where the respondent has passed away. Complainant's client is the one who hired respondent to conduct a survey on July 12th of this year. They filed this complaint on August 23rd because they had not received the survey and couldn't get in contact with respondent. So we did some research because we also could not contact respondent, and it was discovered that respondent passed away on September 18th. So we communicated that to the complainant, and I'm not real sure that there's anything else we can do about it. So the council recommends dismissal.
All right. Pretty cut and dry there. All right. Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Accept.
All right. Motion for acceptance of staff recommendation of dismissal. Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
All right. Motion and a second. Further discussion of any? All right. With not, by voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Passes. Item number 3, please.
Number 3 is 2021063691. Respondent performed a survey for complainant back in 2003. The complainant makes some allegations that the boundaries from that survey are incorrect because their neighbor had a new survey, I guess, that maybe didn't agree. And then the council asked for more information, and complainant didn't want to move forward with the complaint at all and wanted to withdraw the complaint. The respondent did still respond to what we had and confirms that they did complete a survey almost 18 years ago in 2003, but complainant actually asked them to do a new one. And respondent thinks the issue was more about the fact that they couldn't do it right away. They had some other jobs, and the complainant was just calling incessantly. And that's really all the information that we have. So with the complainant not wanting to move forward or provide anything that I can review, council recommends dismissal.
Yeah, seeing that the complainant has requested withdraw the complaint says quite a bit there. So, and without staff finding any evidence of violations, I think pretty much makes it a clear-cut case. Further discussion here?
We accept the council's recommendation to dismiss.
All right. Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Got a second there. Further discussion of any? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good.
That is it. Thank you.
That's it. Wow. That is record. Well, I think that's a good thing. Not having complaints, I think, is a good thing. It means quality work from surveyors. That's good. Okay. With that, I think that covers the items on the legal report. Unless there's something I'm missing, we're good. We'll move on to the director's report. Michael, I think that's going to be you.
Yeah, that'd be me. Let's see. So just real quick, go to the budget items for the financial report. I did include in your packets the September NPS, which details, not in great detail, but gives you a kind of a ballpark of total expenditures, which you can see are a negative $7,889. The program itself still has a $240,000 surplus. You'll notice that below the, I don't know what color that is, but below the net surplus deficit is the next line. One thing I would like to say is we are in full swing of the renewal process. Right. So over the course of this month and next month, and potentially, and even into January for those who like to utilize their grace period, we should see a significant increase in overall, I guess, revenue, for lack of a better term, but renewal fees.
Right.
We'll
Yep.
see that coming in over the months, which will our numbers, and basically we'll build out the next 2 years based on the next 2 months.
That's how it works with the biannual renewal period. That's how it works. And so, I mean, we have this discussion pretty much every meeting when we get the budget report, that it's, you know, it's all concentrated in on pretty much the last 2-3 months of the year, when the registrants are required for renewal. Of course, we are, again, online renewals this year, as we were last time. I think this is our second round of online renewals. Okay. And the audit as well. I think we're still 10%. That was from our last meeting. I think we agreed a random 10% will be selected for auditing. But certainly want to remind and encourage to get those renewals in ASAP. Let's get those in and not have to delay them past the first of the year. And just as a reminder to the registrants, that, you know, come midnight on December 31st or first of the year, your license is expired if you have not gone through the renewal process. You know, you mentioned a grace period, but that does not mean that the license is not expired. It is expired. You technically cannot survey after the first of the year if you have not renewed your license. So make that very clear with all the surveyors that are out there that you come across, to remind them to get those in. I did receive my renewal reminder in the mail. I trust that all the surveyors across the state have as well. But let's get online and get those in and get the process through. You don't want to be delayed either by forgetting or getting it past the first of the year. So I strongly want to encourage that. But back to the budget, you're right. It is an ebb and flow with our budget, and these next two months will be certainly the influx of funds for the next 2 years until the next renewal. So that's just how it works. Any questions from other members of the board here? Kevin, anything?
Nope. That'll make it clear to me.
Okay. All right. Mr. Michael, I'll hand it back to you.
Find my meeting dates. So obviously this is the last scheduled meeting of the year 2021, at which time I would like to propose 4 meeting dates for the next year, which in essence is just a one actual digit difference from all of these. So I am proposing February 17th, May 19th, August 18th, and November 17th. I give you all a minute or so to, if you want to take a look at your calendars, if you have anything set that far in advance.
Certainly look good. I think what I would suggest is possibly here in a little bit, we'll take maybe a 5-minute break just to kind of review the calendars, probably look at cross-reference that with the NCWS schedule just to make sure that all jives. Is that acceptable? And then we'll come back and approve those dates?
Yeah, if you'd like.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that right now if we can. Then we'll just take a 5-minute break and do it that way as opposed to
5-minute break. You guys check out your calendars, and we'll reconvene here at let's see, 9:43. All right, thank you.
Oh, no, that's what we got to cross-reference. Did you get a chance to cross-reference those with the NCES? We talked about it this morning.
I did.
You did? Okay, good. Doing the legwork for us.
The Southern Zone meeting is... I lost the email. Hold on.
Hey, boy. If I'm playing that far out.
Okay. Welcome back. It's 9:43. We will go ahead and reconvene. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Michael. We did have an opportunity to review those 4 selected dates that were listed. Don't find any conflict that we're aware of, unless there's something that other board members have conflict with. Unless there's an issue there, or no issues there, I should say, I would entertain a motion for approval of those meeting dates for 2022.
I move we approve those dates for 2022.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second? And a second. Any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none by voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And just to reiterate, those dates are February 17th, May 19th, August 18th, and November 17th.
Right, yes.
I should add, I know we talked about the NCEES annual meeting in August. We've missed that. We'll miss that one. We will have met here the week prior to that. And then the Southern Zone meeting is in April. That's the one out in Oklahoma City.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let me see. I have one other item here that I'd like to, if I may, bring to your attention. I received this yesterday from the NCEES. Okay. And what this is a notification about computer-based testing. This is a notice that the NCEES will be administering all of their testing, application testing, online, computer-based, in a testing facility. The reason I bring this to your attention is because it requires an ascension, a signature from the member board. So I know you all probably haven't had a lot of time to review this, but I would like to say that the NCEES has been conducting computer-based testing for a period of time now, I believe, and we have not had any issues with that. So, after consulting with counsel regarding this as well, there's nothing in here that is binding, even though in the email they use the word contract. I don't believe there's anything, Maria, I don't believe there's anything contractual about this agreement with the NCEES.
Yeah, it's we don't actually currently have a contract with NCEES. I checked with the contracts department yesterday regarding the exam. The statute and rules just state that NCEES shall provide the exam and that examinee should pay those fees directly to NCEES. And so they kind of have the broad discretion to do however they want. I would consider this more an acknowledgement that we understand they're offering the test online.
Yes, about second paragraph, this agreement affirms that as long as your member board remains active and in good standing with the council, NCEES will provide the following services. So that's our interpretation, is that this is a guideline as to what they're providing, and in no way does it bind us to any sort of a payment or anything like that. So we're just basically acknowledging that. So I'd ask the permission of the board. I guess, well, since you're all in person, Mr. Chairman, if you wanted to sign it,
certainly, yeah,
you can, or I can
Absolutely.
do it.
Do have a quick question, real quick, for Ms. Maria there. It sounds like you did have an opportunity to obviously review this letter and then compare it with our existing statutes and rules. Was there any conflict in there that you found?
There is not, because the rule is so broad. It's very cut and dry that NCEES shall provide the exam.
Right.
And so they have the latitude to conduct that in whatever way they see fit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in my review of the material here, there's nothing in here that doesn't or hasn't been going on for as long as I've been aware of NCEES offering the exams for the applicants. So I did not find any issue in there as well. Jackie or Gary, Kevin, anything? Kevin, I don't know if you may not have a copy of it, Kevin, in front of you there. But I didn't see any issue with it. Does that require a motion for it, or I think I'm fine with signing as chairman. I'll be all right.
I'd say for good measure, let's just go ahead and agree, have an agreement officially. So a vote would suffice. Motion, typical motion and second.
Okay. With that, I'd entertain a motion for acceptance of the computer-based testing agreement as provided by NCEES.
I move the chairman sign the CWS computer.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion is second. Any further discussion to follow? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. I'll just catch up with you after the end of the meeting to sign that.
Yes, that'd be great.
Very good. All right, Mr. Michael, anything further?
Nothing officially in my report. I believe we move on to the proposed rules and regulations changes.
I agree. I would like to take a little purview on the agenda here that I asked for earlier to give an opportunity for one of our attendees here. I believe it's Mr. Boyle. Just in the interest of time, before we get into the rules and regulations, which I think may be an extended amount of time here, I just want to offer Mr. Boyle the opportunity. I think he wanted to come up in front of the board and ask a few questions, unless there's any objections. Very good, sir. If you would please introduce yourself. I think there might be a paper to fill out there with the need to fill out the name and phone number or address or something as a speaker. I know in the past we have.
We'll make sure and get his.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Boyle, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Todd Boyle. I am a licensed surveyor in the state of Florida, been licensed since 2000. Most recently, while in Florida, I was employed as the county surveyor with Manatee County. I had the opportunity to serve there for nearly 15 years, and it was a really good experience. But life has its ebbs and flows, and there was, I think, a desire on my wife and I's part to have a change. And even though left on very good terms with the county, we felt that there was an opportunity for us to have a change of career opportunities, weather. We're enjoying the fall season, and so having moved up here, I'm currently employed with Johnson and Associates. License here. Okay, sorry about that. So just hoping that putting a face with the application, I believe you've confirmed that my application is complete now.
So Morgan, looks like we do have all the documentation. It's going to the board members, and they're going right now.
Very good. Yeah. Typically, the way the process works is Morgan will process the application. It sounds like we've heard from her. All the pieces are in. She'll distribute that application to the board members for their review, and they can, upon their review, they can either approve it or they can defer it in case there's some issues that the board member that's reviewing the application finds. Examples of that might be deficiencies in the plats that were submitted, or reference, some questions on the references that were provided, things like that. And then those go back to Morgan, and if she has a majority of the board approval on that application, then it gets processed on, and you'd be approved to take the exam, the 2-hour state exam. If it gets deferred, then it returns back to you for an opportunity to correct those deficiencies, and then comes back to the board for final reviews. Okay.
I did have one question regarding reciprocity, and this is, I'm asking both in ignorance and respectfully. The language of the code is any applicant in the absence of disqualifying evidence may be deemed by the board to be fully qualified to practice land surveying. It doesn't say fully qualified to take the state-specific tests, and it doesn't say may be deemed qualified.
The board does have the purview to approve a licensee from another state, depending on their qualifications, that they meet the Tennessee state qualifications, to approve upon presentation of a valid current license in another state. However, the board also and as long as I've been on the board, has always said that is subject to taking and passing the Tennessee state exam as well. So it's strictly at the board's purview.
I might suggest that online that is not clear, because under the category of reciprocity, it doesn't say meet these requirements and then therefore you qualify to sit for the test. It just says meet these requirements, and it makes no further comment or statement regarding the state specific test.
Well, we'll certainly look at that for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Excellent. Well, I'm certainly appreciative that you've made application. Welcome to Tennessee. It's certainly a change of venue from Florida, I'm sure.
It's a very big difference. Learning a lot, but surveying is surveying. There's differences, profound differences between the public lands and the meets and bounds states, but it still is just surveying. And I say that in it sounds maybe sort of dismissive. I think among surveyors, well, it's just surveying. The public doesn't understand that it's surveying, and it's not something that comes easily. We make it look easy. When we're doing our job well, we're the ones who are making it look easy. And of course, in all this, I don't know how things are here in Tennessee, but in Florida, there has been discussions of deregulation. And I don't know, is that a thing that has been discussed here in Tennessee?
I've heard the same discussion for Florida. On the national basis, specifically in Florida, I've heard that discussion. That it has not been presented or discussed in any length in Tennessee. I don't see that in the future. But one note that I would bring up to you that kind of relates to your application, although it probably, if it should go through, probably would not go through in time, is the potential for, and other states are currently looking at it, some have already done it, the removal of that 2-hour exam to the state specific. And we're going to discuss that later on today. But that's down the road quite a ways. But certainly that is a topic as well going through other states. But to get back to your specifically deregulation in Tennessee, not that I'm aware of.
Good, because I think that would be...
Different administration may come through and things may change. So
it would be a huge detriment.
It would be, yeah.
And the public wouldn't understand the harm for years.
Right.
It's sort of, there's a lag time between the survey being done and then the unintended consequences of poorly performed surveys, substandard surveys that would cause the public just innumerable damage.
Thank you. Any further questions for us? I certainly welcome that you came, the distance to be in front of the board. That certainly says a lot to us. I certainly look forward to reviewing your application.
Very good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that the rule and technical standard changes appears both in old business and new business.
Okay.
So I believe that with the latitude you requested early on, we could take that up in either section.
I agree. And since it was addressed at the last meeting here, I think that was the actual acceptance from the administration of the red lines that were submitted. I consider that old business. So I'd like to address that under old business. And since that's where we are right now, would be a fine time if you're open to that.
Yeah, sure. We have Maria here, and the red line, which is in your packet. Let's see. Look for a page number specifically. After Mr. Lingerfelt's letter, so page 20 of the meeting material packet on your...
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. If I could give just a quick history, and then we'll get to Miss Maria's portion of it there. We as a board agreed, probably coming up on a year now, maybe not quite that long ago, that the standards needed a review. We've heard, and of course we work with those standards on a day-to-day basis, but we've heard from other members as well. There were some questions. Time goes by and they get dated. Some of it didn't apply to current standards. It just needed a good, fresh overview. And so I took it upon myself some time ago to say, look, I'll take that on. Basically, I'm going to go out and ask not only the individual surveyors across the state, but the professional societies as well to look, do you have some suggestions? what is it that's not working? What do you think needs to be strengthened? Is there things in here that are outdated? Let's just get a fresh look at it, and give me those suggestions. And so, probably about over a 6-month period, I kind of collected those from various entities and tried to first, number one, understand what they're going after. I did make a few phone calls just to get clarifications, things like that, and then to basically incorporate those into this proposed changes of the rules. And so what I did was essentially generated a Word document of the existing rules, and then, as best of my ability, kind of redline out what I was looking to change. And then those were submitted at the last meeting here for staff's review. And I understand, Ms. Maria, I think, if I understand correctly, you've had an opportunity to review those. I see that you've obviously put them in a correct format, much better than I could ever do. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then you and I did have a brief discussion with a couple of quick questions. I hopefully have clarified those for you. And I certainly want to give you the opportunity to kind of follow up from where we are now, and then what the next step is in hopefully incorporating these.
Certainly. And thank you for walking me through these and all the work you did to prepare the red line. I don't think the formatting was that bad.
I tried.
So at this point, if all the board members are comfortable with the red line as it appears today, we can get a motion and a vote for approval to set a formal rulemaking hearing. That will initiate the process, and ideally we would have that at the February meeting, the rulemaking hearing. And I'm not sure, I haven't had the opportunity to, do a rulemaking packet for this board yet. So I just wanted to let you all know that in the past we've done rules via proposed rulemaking hearing, which means that you don't have to have the actual hearing. You can just kind of present them and have the board's approval. Moving forward with rules such as this that have substantive changes, we do a full hearing where there's a court reporter, and the public will have the opportunity to comment on the record and provide any feedback that they would like to on the rule. It's just a more formal process, and that's something that I lead. It's kind of scripted. There are a lot of statutory requirements involved that just have to be read into the record. So anyhow, that will occur with all of your, if you do vote to move forward on this today, that will occur at the February meeting. And that is also, the other caveat with that is that once you approve today, I have to get approval from the department first. So that would be Michael and then my supervisors within legal and the commissioner's office. And then the governor's office would also have to sign off that these are approved for rulemaking hearing. And then they will be filed with the Secretary of State 45 days in advance of the hearing. That gives the public proper notice, to if they would like to comment. And then the rulemaking hearing occurs.
Is the February date enough time to get through all those channels? That seems like a lot of approvals and steps and checks and signatures to get to that point. February is not that far away, and we know how government works sometimes.
Certainly. I could definitely try, and I think we could do that. But if not, if it does happen to where, there is a lull, especially with the holidays coming up, that can be difficult. If there's a lull in the approval process, then we can do the May meeting. So maybe in that motion and vote, we just say February if time allows, and if not, we'll do the May meeting.
You could clarify for me, you may have said it already, I just want to clarify, at what point does the public get access to read these and comment? Because I've had a lot of other surveyors ask me, hey, I want to see those proposed rules, and I was like, I can't give them to you, but they'll be made public at some point. Can I get a clarification on when that date is? Because they want to see this.
Certainly. So that occurs once the department will approve, the governor's office will approve, and at that point I file this red line and what the final rule will look like with the Secretary of State's office. That is posted online, open to the public. The PDF is with the Secretary of State's office online. Also, if you are signed up through the department's e-notify, this is mailed as a blast to all people who are signed up for those emails. So it's completely available to the public at that point. We welcome and encourage feedback and comments. In that e-notify email that goes out, there's language stating that if any person has comments on that, they can send those directly to my email, and I will get those into the record at the hearing. They can also appear in person at the hearing and comment on those rules, and we can make changes or adjust as needed.
Okay, so and that would be the last opportunity for those changes and adjustments. Is that correct?
At the hearing would
Yes.
be like kind of the deadline for that, and
Yes.
we would, you all would have the opportunity to say yes, we acknowledge that this should be made, or no, we don't, and here's why.
Okay.
And that all becomes part of the permanent record for the rules.
Okay, very good. Certainly sounds easy, but I'm sure there's a lot of complications in there.
It's, formulaic, and so if you just follow the process.
Sure, yeah. And I've received those e-blasts before, and it does work. Yes, I've seen that. Okay, very good.
And we'll know by the time I send out, put together the agenda and send out meeting materials, we'll know at that point whether or not we're going to be able to put this in the February meeting.
Right.
So hopefully we can, we as a department can move expeditiously on it, knowing our timeline.
Very nice.
And this is just an aside, but the department, per the governor's office, has implemented a new rulemaking software online called Esper. And so this is my first opportunity to utilize that software. So, it's just it's supposed to make it more efficient. So hopefully that will help.
Look to you. I've been there. All right, very good. Any further discussion on that from members of the board? Nothing? Okay. So I guess we need a motion for setting that date. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would entertain a motion from a member of the board for setting the date of February 17th with an alternative of May 19th, if logistically it doesn't work out, for a rulemaking hearing to accept the changes to the rules as submitted.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion for that. Is there a second?
Second.
A second.
And a second. Thank you, Kevin and Gary both. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none. By voice vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Motion passes as stated. I guess we'll set that date for the 17th of February unless we need to move it back. Is that right? Great. Well, I sure appreciate all your help on that. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you.
I'm happy to do it. Thanks for walking me through some of those technicalities.
Yes, ma'am. Outstanding work. All right. Let's get back to the agenda there. Anything further, Michael, we need to cover on that?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda would be the item of the Tennessee State Specific Exam. And this is something that that has been floating around on the outskirts here for a while at the last couple of board meetings. I think it might have been mentioned at the last one that I wasn't in attendance, and the suggestion was made that perhaps we move it to this meeting here. So it seems to be getting kind of kicked down the road a little bit, but I think it's time we kind of bring it to a head and discuss it a little bit. And really all I'm looking for today is general discussion on this. I don't think we're going to make any motions or approvals. There's a lot to be covered here with what I wanted to cover specifically on this state exam. I had mentioned earlier when Mr. Boyle was up front about this topic of the potential of removing the requirement for the 2-hour state-specific exam. And probably most surveyors, much like myself, upon the initial idea of this was aghast and how can you do that, and sacrilege, and I've been there, I've done that, I took it, and it's a rite of passage. And customs are a large part of surveying. I think probably agree with that. And changing things is difficult. We're known to be rather stubborn and set in our ways. I know, imagine. And a change like this is probably, would raise some eyebrows, I would imagine, to put it lightly. But I want to present just one aspect of it, and then I definitely want to hear from the other board members on what their initial thoughts are on it as well. The NCAAS that we've discussed earlier, obviously they provide all the FS and PS testing for the licensure of surveying and engineering. Has in the works right now a change to the PS exam, where right now, and it has been for quite some time, it's basically a 6-hour exam after passing the FS exam and qualifying in your individual states. 6-hour exam. It's all computer based now, so that's a little bit different. And then upon successfully passing that exam in most states, the next step is naturally the 2-hour state specific. And I get that, and the reasoning behind it has always been, well, every state's a little bit different, and they're right. Every state is different. I am, and I would imagine the other members here are licensed in multiple states, and each state does have its little nuances. But like you said earlier, Mr. Boyle had said earlier, surveying is surveying, and in most states that pretty much is correct. The advantage to being licensed in multiple states is I've had an opportunity to read over their rules and regulations for each of those states. And it's true. If you start reading through those rules and regulations, for the most part, 95%, I would say, they're almost verbatim identical. Surveying is surveying. Now, there is some differences. The majority of differences might be a PLSS state versus a colonial state. I get that. But again, each of those have their own set of rules that are beyond the state specifics. And those are covered by the FS and PS exams. And in the future, that PS exam may change into what we're calling modules, 5 separate modules that go down into the concentrations. That's another topic. I don't want to discuss that right now. So the idea of the Tennessee state-specific exam, not just Tennessee, but all states that offer the state-specific, is what exactly are you testing for these applicants? Number one, it's a reassurance, I think, to the public, which it's charged on us to protect the public. I think it's a reassurance to the members of the public that this board, this regulatory board, has vetted these applicants, not only in examination and education, but also experience, that they are duly qualified to provide a service to the members of that state. And I'm not disagreeing with that. My point here is again, surveying is surveying. And when you get down to it, ultimately the responsibility of each individual survey that is made lies on the person that has stamped and signed that survey. That's where that responsibility lies and nowhere else. And by stamping and signing that survey, they are saying that I have applied all the rules and regulations that apply to surveying in this particular state that I have performed this survey in. That's what you're saying. And so by doing that, you're acknowledging that you understand the rules and regulations specific to that state. You're accepting the professionalism that goes with it. It's a big step. I think we can all remember signing our first survey. We can all remember stamping it. So that first one was a big one. And so what is it that the 2-hour state-specific exam does in addition to, that's above and beyond when that surveyor actually stamps and signs it? Now let's take a step back here and look at the application process for surveying in Tennessee. One of the requirements to get licensed in Tennessee is the submittal of 2 plats along with written descriptions. And those plats, which are signed and sealed plats by a surveyor, have to be done by Tennessee standards, right? That's often one of the things that kicks back or defers an application, is that those plats are not to the Tennessee standards. They must be. And 2 of the board members will review those, and if they're like me, they've got their, what I call the blue book, the rules, with them, and they're going down the checklist. Does it have all the requirements that are in here? Yes, yes, yes. Is at the end of the day, is it stamped inside acknowledging and certifying to, as it states in the certification, that they've complied with these rules, the current rules? Yes, it does. So that's part of the application. They've submitted that. They've been reviewed by the regulatory board, surveyors ourselves, and approved in order for them to get to that point of taking a 2-hour exam. And the point of that 2-hour exam is to test that they've read and understand and applied those rules and regulations. But they just did that already, for the majority part, on those plats and legal descriptions and various other things in the application that was submitted. So there's some redundancy there. That's one point. The second point is, if you look at similar professions, I'll use engineering just because that's pretty much a brotherhood profession. They do not require individual testing at states. It's kind of joked amongst each other at the engineers that pretty much to get a license in another state, all you got to do is write a check, right? Send it to their board and they process it and hand it back. I couldn't tell you, I'm not an engineer, but from when I talk to engineers, that's pretty much the process. And the reasoning behind that is, again, when you go back and apply that stamp and signature to the survey, in their case, they're engineering documents, but in our case, what we're talking about, the surveys, you're saying, I have read, I have understood, and I have applied these rules and regulations specific to this state by my stamp and my signature. Boom. That's called professionalism, with a capital P. Professionalism. Okay, so we just did that. So that's two of the major points I want to make. A third point is, and I'll give an example. Kentucky is a great example, New Jersey as well. But those two states are the dominant states right now that do not require a 2-hour exam. And so I reached out to Kentucky, obviously a neighboring state of ours, brother state, and I talked to the board, a current board member who was the chairman at the time when their rules changed, eliminating a 2-hour exam. They used to have the 2-hour exam like we do currently. They removed that requirement. I said, well, how's it going? Are you starting to see a substantial change in the quality of surveys? Are your complaints increasing? Is there a burden on the public? Have you seen any detriment to the products that are being put out? No, not at all. We haven't seen any change. In fact, if anything, the complaints are starting to go lower. Now, whether that correlates or not, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But the point is, they're not seeing a change or an increase, really, is what I'm asking. Was there an increase in complaints? Is the quality of the surveys falling, or is the public being harmed in any way? No. Well, that's interesting. So then I reached out to the executive director of the Kentucky board, and I said, hey, how's it going on your end administratively? How's that working out? And he says, it's been a great thing. I said, well, tell me how. How is that working out administratively? What's the biggest benefit? I said, for the staff, he said, for the staff, it's been wonderful because the process of getting licensed for Kentucky now is strictly the FS and the PS, which is handled by the NCEES. It's a lot of acronyms. I'm sorry. I'm impressed that I kept up with it. It's being handled by them. And once they've passed those two tests and they make application to the state board, pretty much a done deal. Well, that's great. They're no longer having to process the individual applications. They don't have to administer what they were doing, a paper exam is what they were doing. We're computer-based here in Tennessee. They literally were doing 2 or 3 times a year. They'd wait until they get enough applications to make it worthwhile and then offer the exam. And then they all had to travel to, I think it's Franklin, Kentucky. There's travel time involved. There's hotel, especially if you're out of state. There's a lot of expense and time incurred on the applicant to take that exam. Now, fortunately, in Tennessee, we really can't make that argument because we're computer-based with our 2-hour exam. I get that. But administratively, there was a big benefit to eliminating that exam and to the applicant, right? And that's really who I'm after. I'm after, number one, protecting the public. Number two, how can we assist the applicant in obtaining this license as best we can under the rules? And so there was a big benefit there. So how does that apply, or how could it apply to Tennessee? Well, I think for many of the same reasons. Now, I don't have exact numbers of what the computer-based testing costs this regulatory board in terms of each applicant, but I do know it ain't cheap. I'd be really surprised if the fee for taking the state exam, which I believe is $200, covers the cost of that computer-based testing. I'd be really surprised. Now, not that that should be the basis for what I'm presenting here. That's not the basis. Cost is not my basis. But what I am saying is that in the interest of not only the applicant's time and cost that they have to incur to go take this exam, but also administratively the time and cost it takes for them to process. I think Morgan probably is smiling, I would imagine, to process those applications and to go through and obviously gain the results, positive or negative, and processing. There's a benefit there too. But again, those are secondary. That's a secondary reason to really my main argument here is why are we doing this? What is it? What is the main advantage to protecting the public of these potential registrants in Tennessee by by requiring a 2-hour exam on them that's not covered already. The professionalism is really what I'm after. That stamp and signature means a lot. It means everything that you are expected to pass in that 2-hour exam right now. So what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And also in the interest of the applicants, the mobility of licensure. We've got a prime example here. We've already got a licensed registrant in Florida trying to come into Tennessee and gain his license. We want to help him through that. This is another hurdle. He had a question specifically, why am I taking this exam? So it's something to think about. I want to bring that to the table here today. I want to hear thoughts from both members here of the board. Kevin, obviously you as well. Initial thoughts, if there's something I'm missing here, what's the disadvantage really is what I'm missing. What is the disadvantage here? Okay. And then after we hear that, I do want to kind of get an idea from legal as far as should this go any further, what are the steps? In brief, I'm not going to take your time because I imagine it could be lengthy. I believe it is in statute. I believe it is, which is a whole different ballgame, I understand. I'd like to hear just kind of a brief overview of that. But first, I'd like to hear, Jackie, I'll just throw the floor to you first. Your initial thoughts, and especially I really want to hear if there's any concerns in there that I've missed.
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you've covered it quite well. And I'm in agreement in that anything we can do to help the applicant along, we need to take in consideration. And a reason from my perspective too is that, like it or not, our profession is a aging profession, and for whatever reason, we're not getting a lot of as many applicants as I think, or applications as I think we would all like to see, especially from the younger generation. And if this is something that might speed that process up, I'm all for it. I too talked to a board member from our neighboring state, and he reiterated everything that you had talked about. He did mention that, and I'm probably getting into the weeds a little bit too much right at this time, but it's not the application. The applicant still has a packet of data that he has to complete and attest, and through an affidavit that he meets certain requirements.
That's right, and I failed to mention that earlier. In fact, it's in my notes here to bring it up. He's talking about Kentucky. One of the rules that they do require is for each applicant before that license is granted is they are provided with a packet. I think it's a PDF file really, but a packet that has all the statute and all the rules that apply to surveying in the state of Kentucky, with an attestation at the bottom saying, I have read, understand, and will apply these. And the purpose behind that is that in the back end, some years down the road, should a complaint be filed on one of their surveys, and he comes up and says, well, the board didn't require me to read and understand. Well, yeah, they did. And here's your signature saying that you did it and that you would. And I would, obviously, I'm certainly in favor of that part of the aspect of it. So certainly. Jackie, did you have more?
No.
All right. Gary, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I actually lean toward it myself. This is something that's been brought up to me for at least a couple of decades from folks that say, why is it necessary to take a state-specific exam? And I've taken a few myself. And, the primary thing that I've found in them is questions on the minimum standards of practice or whatever similar document that state runs. And we've kind of covered that now that most of the states are requiring that to be a part of continuing education, and that comes into play right then. And also there's a common lineage to our standards of practice in several of the southern states. We can trace the authorship back to South Carolina standards in reality when they started up, and so that's why they all seem so similar. They are similar and have a common lineage. The things that pop up on the exams are, things about coordinate systems or meridians or how to look up the where the record keeping is, how that works, and you'd have to figure that out before you could actually do anything anyway. I mean, it's, again, it comes down to professionalism. Is if you the difference between surveying in the 3 grand divisions of Tennessee is actually very noticeable, and local knowledge means a lot, and so you don't really pick that up from an exam. That's something that if you go into a county that you're not familiar with, you have to figure out how things work in that county before you go. The difference in doing topography, working in the East Tennessee area, and then showing up in the tidal plains of North and South Carolina is phenomenal difference. And you just have to learn the different ways that they mark property and things. I mean, so to me, I agree. This all comes down to if you're going to go even outside of your county, much less outside of your state, a professional is going to figure out how things are done and what's the common practice, even down to what's the common practice of marking line trees and corner trees is different from jurisdiction. I'm seeing less value in the state of actually requiring folks to take an individual exam for the state. I mean, one of the arguments that come up is, well, what about going from public lands to colonial and meets and bounds? But the number of Tennessee surveyors that I've run into that aren't aware that Tennessee has public land states in it is, there's no harm. There's benefit in learning that, because even in the public land states, there's lands that's described by meets and bounds. I mean, it all kind of comes down to you study what you need to study to work in the jurisdiction you're working in. I don't know. I find less and less value of requiring the additional test.
That's a good point. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. Well, I would throw out one. I've run into South Carolina surveyors who weren't aware that South Carolina's on the international foot instead of the U.S. survey foot. But hopefully that'll go away in a few years with the grid modernization. And it only came into effect if they were doing GPS work anyway, or working in state plane coordinates rather. And if they weren't, it just didn't come up. But there's that again. That comes down to you've got to stay up on the profession. If you stay in it, regardless of where you're going across the state line, technology has changed, the procedures change, and certainly the regulations change. So the last state exam that I took, it was almost a joke for all of us sitting in the room about taking the exam, and we were actually taking bets of who could finish the exam first because they were so similar. And most of us this was not our first additional state to go to.
A lot of this really goes towards the effectiveness of what we call mobility, the ability to gain licensure in other states, and the hurdles that you have to jump through. I refer back to the engineers. Jokingly, you write a check, you get your license, and literally the time, although it's different for each state, is relatively quick. When people that I work with come to me and say, hey, we need a survey up in Missouri, and I'm like, I'm not licensed. Well, go get your license. And for those engineers, like I said, it's a couple of weeks maybe if it takes a while. But for surveyors, oftentimes I'll tell them, well, it's about a 9-month process. And they're like, what, 9 months? Well, before computer based, you had to sit there. Your timing was offered twice a year, right? Paper exams are offered twice a year. April and October, and if you made application in November, well, you were going to wait till April, so there's delay plus your whole application process. Literally, it could take 9 months depending on your calendar application. And why does it take so long? And here we go again. The idea here again is in the big picture, with the reasoning behind the future PS exam going into 5 separate modules is for the ability of better mobility. That sounds funny. In the idea that if you're working in a PLSS state, then you take that specific module of examination, pass it, and then the states have their own criteria as to what modules are required. Elimination of the state specific would be just another hurdle eliminated toward licensure yet it doesn't eliminate anything toward the education or the experience or the examinations that are required, which are the three-legged stool toward licensure. I think it's something we need to look at. I really think you're going to start seeing other states. If they're not discussing it already, they will be, and I think you'll see some other states. And probably once another one jumps in and another one jumps in eliminating this 2-hour exam, you're going to see it go like gangfire. I really do. We're getting to that point. It's down the road. I'm not saying that should we pursue this in Tennessee, it happens tomorrow. It's not. But it's certainly becoming a topic. And I would anticipate this will be, again, a topic at our next meeting. Michael, if we could put it on the agenda. And I am asking both the board members here, Kevin as well, and any of the surveyors that are watching this, talk about it amongst yourselves, amongst your other professionals, talk about it amongst your societies, and let us hear from you. I want to know what you think about this. And I know those out there with similar colored hair as mine are going to be up against it, because that's the initial reaction, as was mine. I'm right there with you. But I think when you look at it and think about the details and the specifics of what's going into this and the advantages to eliminating the exam, and that it doesn't put the public at any adverse position, or let's say position, I think we can make a strong argument for at least taking this further to the next step. With that being said, if Jackie and Gary don't have any further comments, I would like to ask legal as to what the process, very lightly, take it easy on us, what the process may be to even get this started.
Well, I was just going to say quickly, too, that it being a statutory change, it's not going to be a quick process. It's probably going to take, I would think, at least a year to get accomplished.
That's really what I'm looking for.
Certainly. So the way that it works when there is a statutory change that needs to occur, usually the department asks for any proposals that boards may have in around April, and then those are submitted early May. And it's not necessarily the board changing the statute or asking to change it. It's the department and the administration would evaluate all the proposals that are submitted and then, select which ones would then go to the governor's office. And so that's at the sole discretion of the administration on what they see fit. And then they submit that to the governor's office. The governor's office then picks and chooses which statute changes go into that packet. And so timeline-wise, that would be May 2022 for session spring 2023. And then just another thought that I'm happy to, submit this proposal and to the department and everything, but just a thought that came to mind discussing all of this is just the move generally for deregulation across licensed boards, nationally. But whenever we do open up the statute and say, hey, let's lessen, there's always that, not the chance, but, just a possibility of more discussion and attention, I guess, for deregulation. So just a factor to maybe ponder and consider in this.
Interesting. Kind of bringing attention to yourself. Maybe, okay, well, that's certainly something to think about. To be more specific, I should have mentioned this earlier. The TCA that we're referring to is 6218-109, Part B, Sub 2, Section E. I don't know all the nuances there, but that's it. And essentially, it's the explanation of the application process and the requirements that they take the FS, the PS, and as it currently reads, the 2-hour exam as well. We did receive, just for the record, a letter from Mr. Tim Lingerfeld from Alley and Associates requesting the board to look into this and to bring it of interest. And that's partially the reason why I'm discussing this here, because obviously any letter that comes into the board I want to attend to. But also personally, I think this is potentially a positive move for the board and for the future surveyors, obviously, of Tennessee, and without any harm to the public. So it's certainly something I want to bring to attention and pursue a little further.
And that was another point I wanted to make too. On the other side of that coin, you have just the facts that, this encourages reciprocity, this encourages mobility, it makes it better for the licensees. We're trying to be accommodating and efficient. So those are all the pros that you can add when making the proposal.
Absolutely. Thank you. Michael, do you have anything further on that you wanted to bring forward?
I don't. I believe that Maria just covered everything that I probably would have covered in terms of what you had asked. No, I don't have a, you're the experts on subject matter. So we're the experts on process.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Anything we want to add, Jackie or Gary, Kevin? Kevin, I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I just had a few thoughts on this. I was glad to hear you mention the packet, the state packet that requires a signature, so that they have been exposed to, at least that aspect of it. One of my thoughts is that I feel like that in the long run, this will be better for the country in its entirety, because I think there'll be some consolidation. I have to believe that there would be some consolidation of some of the rules over time, just to sort of facilitate the single test as more states adopt that. Jay, I did have a question. How long has Kentucky been not requiring the state? And is it possible that there could be a lag? Maybe the majority of surveys at this time were performed by people that had the state exam, and is there a potential that a lag is hiding lack of knowledge? I just want to bring that up.
Yep, and that's a valid question, and I asked the exact question to both the former chairman and the current executive director, that same question. They believe it's been about 6 years. 6 years it's been under that rule change that their 2-year exam was no longer required. So we've got a 6-year sample, and from what they were telling me, they've seen no increase in complaints.
Yeah, so you would expect probably within 6 years you would see some of the errors and problems come up if they're going to exist. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, I'm a chemical engineer, so from my viewpoint, one of the things that we have is the IUPAC, and it's the International Unit of Pure and Applied Chemistry, and essentially they come up with the nomenclature for chemical names and compounds. And I think if we didn't have that, with it, a guy in Poland, a guy in Germany, and a guy in America, we can look at a compound name and we can draw out the compound. And so I think to the point I'm making is that there's a lot to be said for the synergy of, I think, combining or I should say eliminating the state and over time hopefully streamlining the exam.
Yep, that's a good point. Very good. Just while I was in thought there for a minute, I did want to add that the surveyors are required for the renewal to take not only the ethics that we mentioned earlier, but also a PDH course in a review of the minimum standards. And so at least on a biannual basis, the surveyors are already required to get a refresher or a re-review of those minimum standards, in addition to obviously their original licensure and passage of the testing. So I just wanted to reassure that I'm not suggesting that gets eliminated at all. Kevin, anything further?
That's it.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to point out that we've seen the testing requirements come closer and closer together over the years. When I tested in North Carolina, I had to take pretty much their full exam because that was before Tennessee had joined NCAA, and my exam here in Tennessee didn't count in North Carolina. But with NCAAS, most of the states are really getting together with the modules, and the tests are and the skill level is very similar. And we're not advocating throwing open the borders. Still, the application process requires proving that you've met what this state's educational experience requirements are, which is similar to the others. And Kentucky was the first regional state that was requiring minimum standards as part of the PDHs. Mm-hmm. And so and at the time before they allowed the computer courses, once every 5 years, we'd have to make the trip to Bowling Green to take the minimum standards. In Alabama, it was Montgomery. So it's quite a bit of effort to stay up to speed onto it, which I still think is good. I'm glad Tennessee finally got around to requiring having the minimum. And that to me, that's kind of the leveling right there, is that as long as we're having the requirement for continuing education, and that it is a requirement in the states for a certain number of hours of state specific, then that should be covering and should be able to replace the state specific exam.
Very nice. Jack, anything further?
Not specifically on that, and I don't know if this, I'm just going to open up for discussion.
Sure, yeah.
And it's something that could be piggyback on it if we choose to look into it, and that would be review and reevaluate and relook at the requirements for licensure, getting in terms of experience requirements, educational requirements, and to see if I believe that some of that needs to be modified somewhat. Okay. And that would also be a statutory change. So I don't know if it's something that could be combined to try to get it all through at one time. But it sounds like that we've got time to look at that. And again, I'm not prepared to discuss it in any kind of detail, but I think specifically the option 5 that needs to be revisited, especially in terms of experience. Okay. Again, we are an aging profession, and anything we can do to get more people involved, I think is good, and still protect the public.
Yep, absolutely.
If I can just say, too, timing wise, that would be most beneficial if we could get that language, because I have to have specific language to submit if we want to do this all together. So that would need to be at the February meeting, right, approved and finalized, because the May meeting is after the deadline that most in the past that the department has asked for the final language. So to approve and kind of submit by February would be ideal for me.
Understand. All right. Jackie, is that something perhaps that you want to pursue and present at the next meeting?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Yep, that'd be excellent. All right. Anything further we need to carry on that? I think I've said my piece. Very good. Okay. Back on the agenda, I think that covers everything under old business. Am I correct, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And under new business, we've already reviewed the rulemaking red lines. I think that was the redundant item there. And next item is the PDH hours for attendance. I'm looking at about an hour and a half, so 1.5 PDHs for today. Does that sound about right? On agreement there? Okay. We need a motion for that?
Maybe 1.5.
Yep. All right. I'll take a motion on that.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right. Fair enough. And anything else we need to cover?
I have one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Maybe this should just be kind of just an announcement. Sharita Brown, who is here today, here in the back of the room, has joined our staff. She'll be taking on a number of different duties. I believe that, as time moves on, you'll start seeing a little bit more email traffic from her. One of her responsibilities is going to be meeting management. So logistically, she's going to be working with you all in that regard. In some other areas, we're currently working on trying to fill another staff opening, and once we get that other person on board, things will start to shake out a little bit more properly. And just in case, if I hadn't mentioned it earlier, we've now blended the A&E staff with the centralized or property boards. So Caleb Darnell, who has been managing this program for at least as long as I've been here, and then some, has now also taken on the management of the architects and engineers program. So there'll be a little bit more of a, I guess we're just kind of bringing everything that's somewhat related into the same team now instead of having them separated. So just want to let you all know that that's in process, and also take the opportunity to introduce Sharita. And if you get a chance to say hello to her after we adjourn, I recommend it.
Thank you. We certainly want to welcome Ms. Brown there. Certainly look forward to future communications with you. Michael, I did want to just real quick just acknowledge the work that Morgan, Caleb, Maria, all your staff has done, not only just here over the last few months, but literally as a whole. Outstanding. The communication, I couldn't ask for better. The patience,
Yeah.
lots of patience on their part. Outstanding. Just really, you really have a great staff. I just want to just reach out and acknowledge not only to you, but to them individually, and thank them for their work efforts. Great work there.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that I speak for everybody when I say all those accolades and those are very much appreciated. And I appreciate that as the executive director, because given that we are all 90% remote these days, we don't get to interact with each other as much, where we would hear those types of things, water cooler type situations. So
right.
Those are very much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, it's well deserved, and the outstanding staff you got there. So thank you to all of them. All right, unless there's anything further, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Hey, Jay, it's Morgan. It looks like Mr. Mario has his hand up. I'm not sure if he wanted to say something before the meeting was adjourned.
Okay, and we're not adjourned yet.
Thank you very much. Mario Forte here with TAPS, conference chair for 2022. As stated earlier, the conference is March 2 through 5. I do have a 2-hour session that is scheduled for the Tennessee Board of Examiners to speak to TAPS. That is going to be on the afternoon of the 3rd of March, which is a Thursday. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. If you this year and the previous years, what we have done is a Q&A session. But if you have any presentations that you would like to present to TAPS or the attendees, we would more than happy to invite you to do that. This will be an in-person conference.
Excellent. That's great news. Great news. I'll tell you, Mario, I appreciate and we certainly accept the invitation to make that presentation. And I'll make this brief. If there's one thing particular that I really miss between the quote, the new ways that we do things is the interaction that the board members have with the registrants. There's certain legal aspects that we can't make communications with, and I understand that. But really back in the old days when we had the paper exams and things like that, we used to make an effort to go over in front of the examinees and wish them luck and thank them for their efforts. And we knew all the time and expenses they went through, and we just don't get that anymore. So now we kind of make up with that at your offering of allowing us to make a presentation at the TAPS conference. We really, really appreciate that. And we want to make sure that we're accessible to all the registrants across the state and just make ourselves available and answer questions as best we can. All right. With that, we had a motion and we had a second. We did have further discussion. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
I'll be back in a second.
Yep. Not as quick as Jackie can, but
This meeting is no longer being recorded or transcribed.
Does
Thank you,
CEES publish their meeting dates on their website?